Hello and welcome. She's one of India's most powerful women and has been at the top of her profession in a male-dominated profession. Zia Mody, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
How easy or difficult has the journey been for you?
Difficult in the beginning, for sure. I worked for 5 years in New York, came back to a very different workspace, started practicing and arguing in court for about 10 years, 7, 8 years. Wore my band gown every day and said, "Your Lordship pleases, my lady pleases." So I think there in the beginning certainly felt a bit lost, a very male-dominated space, as you can imagine. But had great mentors, a lot of support from our judges, and I think, one step at a time.
Okay, did you perhaps encounter the glass ceiling during your journey, and how often did you have to break it and how did you manage to do it?
So I guess I was one of those very few that never really thought I had a glass ceiling, and so the question was just how could I benchmark myself higher and better. And so when I was an individual practicing, it was just doing that much more work, reading that much more law, arguing that much better every day, improving your skill sets. And then when we started doing corporate law and we became a partnership, then really the collective wisdom of all of us, men or women, young partners are the future, and young women partners certainly play a large part. So I think just keeping at it, really.
While at work, have you ever felt that perhaps, especially when you're meeting clients, that, they tend to treat women differently as opposed to they would treat men?
Certainly, clients do sometimes think younger women, if you like, are perhaps instinctively in their minds less competent or less able to achieve. And then really it's up to you as an individual. So as a senior woman, I weigh in, and I think the fact is that if my presence is supporting another woman, that should be confidence enough for the client. For our other male partners, I think there's the same messaging that goes through, and ultimately the woman's work shows. And if the client is not stupid, he's figured it out.
So Zia, how have times changed, say from when you started out to where things are today?
Well, we women earn a lot more money today than I certainly did. And I think we have a sense of confidence that is increasing year on year. A lot of people who have the right tone from the top in their workplace don't start off thinking they're an unequal proposition. But women still have the same problems that we had many generations ago. Young wives, young mothers, the leaky pipeline, as they say. So, but the only comforting, or maybe not so comforting, thing is to know that it is global, just not Indian.
What are the key challenges that come to your mind as far as Indian women being engaged in the workforce are concerned?
I think just the stress of not multitasking but multitasking. I think the urban woman has moved from her traditional family home, has lost her traditional family infrastructure. The creche has become a very unviable alternative. The guilt factor is much more than perhaps it was earlier. So I think it's just the EQ of the woman that is, quite stretched. And the challenge is really how to make her at peace with herself, with all the stakeholders that she has to love and look after.
So how difficult is it then for, the woman of today to perhaps have a work-life balance?
I think it continues to be difficult. I have never thought there is a work-life balance. It's just how much of an imbalance you can, reduce in your work. I think that we tend to take on multiple roles just because of who we are and the traditional concepts with which we've grown up. I'm not sure it's going to change very quickly. But with more male support, we'll be happier. So
personally, how would you say that you have managed to maintain like some amount of a work-life balance, if at all?
My work-life balance is not very good, but I think that where I was truly helped was I had a family infrastructure. I had a mother who would never stop telling me I was more equal than my brothers. I had a father who was very indulgent and supportive of me, and he was a lawyer. I have a husband who continues to be very proud of me, and I have a happy home to come back to, which is most critical. And when my mother-in-law was alive, she used to tell me to go to work and not to worry. Now, what more could a woman want?
Okay, what are the three things that you think India needs to do to empower its woman workforce?
I think to create more job opportunities for women, which goes down to educating the women, which goes down to educating the girl child. So I think it starts from there. We have 350 million women under the age of 35. That is a low-hanging fruit. We need to make sure that they don't go off into traditional streams just for lack of alternatives. They can certainly make their choices, but not for lack of choices. So I think starting with the girl child is the key.
How crucial do you think board participation for women is, and as far as corporate India is concerned, not just for women themselves?
I truly believe that gender diversity at the board level is a better board. I also don't believe one woman is enough. I think you need at least 2 to 3 women on the board, because very often that one woman just keeps quiet, at least in the beginning. But again, it's a good start. I'm all for it. It doesn't matter if you don't get the best woman director on your board. How many men are best directors, right? They have to be trained as well. So what's the big deal? So in the next 10 years, I think if we have this interview, we'll be seeing another landscape.
Okay, there's a perception that the higher a woman manager rises as far as ranks is concerned, the tougher it is for her to break the glass ceiling. Would you agree with that or disagree?
I don't know. It's getting easier. It's not easy, of course, but it's getting easier. I mean, you see many more women at the top than you ever saw before. And God willing, that has to continue, simply because if an organization is willing to recognize talent, it will recognize women. Okay,
the environment is changing. So what are the 3 things that Indian women should do to ensure that they're not just empowered, but they also sort of, capitalize on this changing environment?
I think that one, they should have less diffidence. They should have a sense of confidence about themselves. The second is that they should actively seek out mentorship and sponsorship. They shouldn't be worried about it. And the third thing is that when they do reach a certain level, and it may not be at the top, there are different levels of top. So whenever they are in a position to set the tone for the women who are working with them or alongside them or underneath them, or that's when they have to be much more sensitive, simply recognizing they have a larger mission to fulfill.
And what are the 3 things that India must do to ensure that women get their due at their workplace?
I think the men have to go through some attitudinal change, which is difficult if you're looking at 1.2 billion people. I think that the politicians are certainly giving the bites, the sound bites, but I think again they need to have much more of a spiral effect, a swirling effect, so that the messaging gets some scale. And again, I go back to educating the girl child.
So, do you think that perhaps the government can, take an extra step as in empowering women?
Frankly, I think the government's done a good job in all the programs that it's got and all the initiatives that it's done. I don't think that I can really say that this government has not thought about the girl child or women. I think that there has to be more publicity. There has to be more action plans, maybe at the granular level. So if you have this program which does this for women, what are the outcomes? So I would say that any government should concentrate on finite outcomes, because I think as a DNA, the government has the right view for women.
All right, Zia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.